This question comes from a user who asks, could you cool the Earth by painting everything white? It is a classic example of a great goal, where people look for a clever way to manage the massive amount of energy moving through our planetary system. Intuitively, we know that white surfaces reflect light while dark ones absorb it. But as with the idea of a keyboard-based generator or solar roads, it is hard to judge the actual impact until you run the numbers. To start, we have to define our everything. The Earth is a vast place, and the logistics of a planet-wide paint job are staggering. If you tried to gather enough paint to cover the entire world, you would find yourself dealing with a mass of material far heavier than the Empire State Building. If you attempted to store all that paint in one place before starting, the pile would not stay a pile for long. Much like the 1919 Boston molasses disaster, the wave of paint would sweep outward too fast to outrun, scouring the landscape and likely violating Section 1806 of the New York City Building Code regarding the allowable load-bearing values of soils and rocks. The reason this idea is appealing is that the Earth's surface currently receives a bit over a kilowatt of energy per square meter from the sun. On a global scale, that adds up to a staggering amount of power, about 130,000 lux of illumination that normally warms our oceans and land. We already know that even a relatively dark object like the moon has a measurable effect on our temperature. Infrared radiation from the moon warms the Earth by about 1.2 milladegrees Fahrenheit. If we replaced our dark forests and blue oceans with a white flashlight level of reflectivity, we would be reflecting a massive portion of that solar energy back into space before it could be absorbed as heat. However, if you actually succeeded in painting the entire surface white, you would run into a horrible idea level of climate chaos. The sun is the main driver of our weather and climate, creating temperature extremes that cause hot air to rise at the equator and flow toward the poles in what we call Hadley cells. By reflecting all that energy away, you would fundamentally alter the atmospheric heat circulation. You might even create a scenario similar to if the sun suddenly switched off. While there would be some amusing benefits to a frozen world, like better astronomy due to less atmospheric noise, or cheaper bridges, since you could just drive on a strip of asphalt laid across the ice, there is a significant downside. We would all freeze and die. Even if you only painted the land, you would still face the problem of the oceans. If we look at what happens when you introduce massive amounts of water to a cold environment, like teleporting the oceans to Mars, the water tends to freeze and sublime, creating a bedrock of ice. Eventually, the Earth would become a twilight inferno of reflected light, but instead of the heat being trapped, it would be lost to space. In the end, you would be in very big trouble with the International Joint Commission or the International Niagara Committee for rendering the planet uninhabitable. As with most planetary scale modifications, it's probably safer to stick to digital simulations.